Hi, I'm Nicholas Luisi, president of GKIC. I'm here with our founder, Dan Kennedy. We're here talking about SuperConference. You know, Dan, when you founded the company, you were the one of your genesis was SuperConference, and it was a gathering of entrepreneurs and small businesses. Who is SuperConference for?
Well, so first of all, it is really our member convention.
Okay.
So if you draw an analogy to an association,
Okay.
it's our annual member convention. And in some respects, it looks like that, right? People who've been to, if they're a member of the National Association of Widget Makers and they've been to the conference, it looks kind of like that in the sense that there are general sessions and there are breakout sessions and there's a cocktail party and there's an exhibit hall. The difference is that it is for any kind of business, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, small, medium-sized, or large, that is using direct marketing in non-direct marketing businesses. So it has a narrow focus for a broad audience. Therefore, the exhibitors are curated. You don't just get in there if you have a check. You get in there because you understand what we do and you are determined to be qualified. If not through our own experience of using them, often members, right? And most of the speakers are in sync, not just philosophically, but pragmatically with our methodology. So it's for a broad audience of business owners, although 90% of the attendees, of course, are GKIC members, but it's for a broad audience of business owners, but with a narrow focus. Then, it was always intended as a convenient and efficient shopping experience. So it's a place where you come to find resources, and different people need different things at different times, right? So we do our best, for example, let's say, to put somebody in a session who has an enormous amount of information about how to get local media for your business and make your cupcake store, your dental practice, your whatever famous in your community, in your local market, right? And that person will have home study courses, resources, a coaching program, or done-for-you services to offer. Now, does that mean everybody ought to be trying to make their business famous in their local market? No, right? But some should, and so we will try and provide the best opportunity for you to do that. The success example is the second thing that we have always focused on. So not necessarily the usual suspect that you will see gathered up at every seminar in America, right, who spends their life on the road doing that, but often one of our own members who has been extraordinary at some aspect of our marketing approach or in some niche, will be presenting show and tell, case history, before and after. Here's what I did to get from point A to point B in great detail. And so we have always done that, and GKIC continues to do that. Third, celebrity entrepreneur speakers. So we have, I believe, from beginning to now, no one has had as many celebrity entrepreneurs on their stages as has GKIC. And that means that you, in a fairly up-close environment, you see somebody who you know about, who you see on TV, you're aware of their business, but you haven't heard like their business story. And we work real hard at that. And some of them are big names. They're known to everybody. Gene Simmons from KISS. People know him because of KISS. Some know him because of his reality TV show, which is more about his business activity. But Gene's a fabulous entrepreneur. My friend, the late Joan Rivers. More people know her as a comic and an entertainer than are aware of the business activity. All the way to people, you don't know them, but you know their company. Jim McCann from 1-800-Flowers. But so that's an element of what we do at SuperConference. It has been a place to deliver advanced training where we don't really have any other good venue, to do that. The networking element is huge. It's an overused cliche word, but it is huge in our environment. First of all, people form lifetime alliances and friendships that extend for 20 and 30 years. And SuperConference is the re-engaging of that, and the rest of the time, because they're in Copenhagen and they're in Iowa, and the rest of it is online and phone, but they re-engage really by attending SuperConference and sometimes Info Summit. And that thing is really big because one of the sort of principles GKIC is the movement of what works in business A to business C, where no one would ordinarily think of moving it, and vice versa. And so if you're a member of a trade association and you're a member of the National Association of Hardware Retailers, if you go to that national convention, if you go to regional meetings, if you read the trade journal, what you see is only what other hardware retailers are doing. It's Amish.
And incestual.
It's incestuous. That's exactly right. Here, you see a really eclectic mix. I mean, so we have every kind of professional practice represented. We have every kind of retail represented. We have every type of in-home service. We have every kind of B2B. We have software companies. We have eyeglass retailers borrowing from each other. Right? Crossing lines that other people think are uncrossable. A B2B company that sells software to mid-sized companies is getting ideas from a veterinarian about how to make, and vice versa, how can that be? Well, that's the environment we've created as a whole, and that's the environment that was created to take place live time with human contact in an immersive experience at SuperConference. And so it is true. I mean, we have always gone to a great deal of work to make sure that what happens in the room is legitimate. The people on that stage walk their talk. They don't just talk their talk, and all of that. But it is also true, really, that what goes on in the hallways and what goes on in the exhibit hall and what goes on for people sitting on the floor in their room at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's arguably as important as what is said from the stage. Not only are these events unique, but the nature and the caliber of the audience of them is unique. And obviously, I say that with somewhat of a self-serving bias, although the self-serving part is not near what it once was. But I mean, for 25 years, I spoke 60 to 70 times a year at trade associations and state association meetings and conventions and conferences, and none really do what SuperConference does, and none really assemble the kind of an audience that SuperConference does.
Each event I go to, I'm more and more impressed on the caliber of our members and how bright of marketers they are, but more importantly, how curious and insatiable they are to want to learn more and become better at their craft. And I'm sure you hear about it too. You hear about the gentleman that learned something on Friday, put it in place on Friday night, then Saturday is already making money for something that they learned. To me, I don't know of any conference that you have that level of A plus B equals C that happens.
Well, so we tend to repel.
Okay.
The really dumb and the really lazy ones.
Right.
Okay. We tend even to repel what I call the be your own boss guy.
Okay.
We have some, we welcome them, but basically, they're our most casually attached member. So the be your own boss guy, nothing wrong with being that if that's what you want to be. The be your own boss guy is the guy who owns an auto repair shop because he's a mechanic and he likes working on cars. What he didn't like was having a boss.
Right.
He has no grand ambition. He is not trying to get from one store to 5 stores. He is not trying to add an e-commerce component part to his business. He just wants to make the same living he was making or a little bit better and not have a boss. If he's attached to us at all, it's pretty casually. He's probably a gold member. Sure. He probably doesn't ascend, and he probably never shows up at a SuperConference. And that's fine, by the way. And the really dumb ones and the really lazy ones, we tend to repel.
Right.
And I have always gone out of my way to repel. So they're not there. Whereas again, if you're a hardware store owner and you go to the National Association of Hardware Retailers Convention, you are in a big haystack with relatively few needles in it, meaning really smart, smart plus hardworking, ambitious, intellectually curious, innovative people. They're there,
right,
but there's damn few of them in the total population that's in that room, right? So you're mostly surrounded by the lazy and the dumb and the be your own boss guys. That's what you're surrounded by. And it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy because in most associations, the super high performers don't go.
Right.
They ignore the convention for this very reason.
Right.
So the thing actually gets worse over time. The only trade association I've ever belonged to, I won't mention it, but that's exactly what went on there, is when it started and in its early years, it was heavily populated by its stars, okay? Because they started it to hang out with each other and help each other.
Sure.
It grew out of, 12 of the top performers in their industry meeting in somebody's house, right? Over time, it became this giant haystack of everybody in the business, and they stopped even coming,
right,
because that's not where they want to be, right? Ours, here's what we got. We got the 3 plumbers out of all the plumbers in America who are smart,
right,
ambitious, intellectually curious, innovative, and entrepreneurial about their business. Not be your own boss, entrepreneurial. Then we got the 12 lawyers, I'm sorry to say. Then we have the 14 financial advisors. And we have the one guy in the entire pet store industry who is the most progressive, innovative, highest margins. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
That's who's in that room.
Right.
Well, that's a very different room. And so the sort of the feeling you get from it, the perception that you get of it, what you've observed year to year yourself, that's why that is, and why it is so different than any other real gathering of business owners that you might go to, whether at the local level, like your Chamber of Commerce meeting, or at the national meeting, like your trade association. So if you ask Ben Glass the difference between being at a national convention of trial lawyers and being at a SuperConference where there's only maybe another 20 of him, maybe there's only 20 trial lawyers there, there may even be 20 lawyers, period. at a SuperConference. You ask him which one is more productive for him to be at from a standpoint of idea exchange, information exchange, people he meets who he might like to carry on a relationship with. He'll tell you in a hot second, SuperConference.
And Ben will also bring his director of marketing.
Yes.
Right? So they're getting new information too, and they're both.
And look, he has a director of marketing.
Says something about him and his business.
You go to the National Association of Trial Lawyers, you're in a room, 3/4 of them don't have a director of marketing.
Right. The aside from the GKIC presentations and the Dan Kennedy presentations, the highest rated presentations are when we have our own members sharing what's working in their business. And I don't think you get that anywhere else. And
well, you get it, but you get it sparingly and often cautiously, because in a true peer group, John, who has figured out how to sell spas at his hardware stores, or is the insurance agent who has figured out how to really do a great job selling annuities. Right? In that room with him are a bunch of his local competitors from his area. And so he is, if State Farm forces him to go on stage and explain how he's selling a lot of annuities, he'll do it, but he's generally not happy about it. He's generally cautious about it, and he's probably not going to exactly tell the whole story.
Sure.
Right? When he volunteers to do it for us, even if there is another insurance guy there from his town, there won't be many. Right? They'll be from all across the country, and they won't just be State Farm guys. It's a totally different environment. And most of the people watching it are watching it for translation, adaptation, and relocation purposes, not use it just for this narrow function.
I think that's key, and I want to go back to that because I think that point, and I think a lot of the foundation of our teachings is look to outside your industry, see what's working, what's truly working, what's been vetted, and bring that back to your industry and see how you can use it, and most importantly, bring it back to your business. And that's why the SuperConference to me is just a fascinating place to be, because you see all these different industries getting together. Also, the camaraderie and the networking, and I think you and I both agree. It's a tired phrase, but it's important, and it's even more important at SuperConference because the reception, the diamond reception that you and I both attend, they get excited about seeing their peers and their friends that maybe came from Israel or came from California or came from Washington, and they are just excited about seeing each other and share what's going on in their business. They celebrate each other's successes pretty well. Our group does. Yes. They learn from each other very well. And it's just a great community. Disney said that small people talk about other people. Medium-sized folks talk about things. Big people doing big things talk about ideas. And what you find in our group is a lot. If you walk the diamond reception, there's 5 people at an exhibit booth and you walk up and be the 6th to enter that conversation, you are more often than not going to hear a conversation about the exchange of ideas and information and discoveries and what works, right? If you, again, go to a typical convention, you are going to step into conversations that are gossip conversations about the other people that are there, that are complaint conversations, because again, it's a big haystack of people who aren't doing very well. And so you're going to hear the complaint conversation, and you're going to have to look hard to find the exchange of ideas conversation. So, I used to joke, when I spoke so I could do 3 hours at a chiropractic convention on practice building, which is their euphemism for advertising, marketing, and selling. Sure.
And if we take a break after me doing 3 hours of that and we go out in the hall, here's what they're all doing. They're all adjusting each other. They got each other up against the wall. They got them on the floor. They got them in the men's room. They're all adjusting each other. So they're doing that. And they're talking about everything but practice building. right? I spoke 2 years in a row with the National Guild of Hypnotists, all about practice building. Take a break, what are they doing? They're all woo-wooing each other. This one's got a thing, this one's having you count it. They're all hypnotizing each other, okay? Our group, on a break, is talking about what just went on in that room, how it applies to their businesses, what ideas they got, what they went up in their room last night and did, and they adjusted this on their site and it got a 22% bump. That's the conversation you step into because the group is unique, right? So what's going to be more productive? That's going to be productive. And I swear we uniquely have that. And it makes 3 days at SuperConference 10 times more valuable than 3 days anywhere else, right? Because of that factor.
One of the things that both you and I find amazing for not only the SuperConference audience, but Info Summit is how the growth of international members and how their attendance is. And we will have a SuperConference in Orlando. We have one coming up this year in Orlando, 2017 in Orlando. There'll be people in other parts of Florida that can't make it to Orlando, but there'll be 5 people coming from Moscow, 4 people coming from Italy, 7 people coming from Poland, 3 from Japan. They have to take 4 different planes.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's just amazing.
It's horrible. And look, to be 1,000% candid.
Sure.
SuperConference, 30% of the room will be that.
Mm-hmm.
From all sorts of the obvious,
right.
UK, right. Australia, but all sorts of far-flung places. There's a contingent who has been there at the last 2 years SuperConferences from South Africa, like 5, 6 of them. And I think the last time they told me it was 22 hours of travel to get there. To be 1,000% candid, they are much better on average than the American-based business owner. I mean, we are fat and spoiled, and it's really not a good thing. And so these people are. They are aggressively searching for information, and they are aggressively ambitious about entrepreneurship, often in environments that don't even encourage it.
Sure.
I mean, when you think about the people who are at a SuperConference who are there from Russia, or are there from China,
right?
These are not, wave the free enterprise flag places. And here they are. We have people who have to translate everything they hear in that room,
right.
Everything they buy. I'm going next year, by the way, to Italy.
Are you?
To speak. And I have to, obviously I have to work with a translator.
Sure.
And so this group has for years been buying resources from us and having to translate them before they are even able to use them. And as you say, there's somebody who lives in Orlando
right.
who won't be able to get there. And there's somebody who has to make no translation at all who's too busy to read the newsletter. Right? Now, fortunately, again, most of that sort of comes and goes through the GKIC doors.
Sure.
Like corn through a goose with diarrhea. I mean, they right through there. The ones who stick around and the ones who ascend tend to either have or develop intellectual curiosity, study ethic, work ethic. I mean, I'm not for dumb labor, but I'm for work. And that's what tends to be there. And it's another unique part of, again, the haystack you find at a SuperConference is largely made up of needles. Some may be more golden than others, but it's largely made up of gold needles.
Right. It goes to the study aspect and the desire for knowledge from our members. A little inside baseball, we used to always have a night session on both nights. We took one away because we thought maybe they wanted to go out and see the sites. And they said, no, we come here to learn. We come here for actionable, what's working today information. We want that session, so we added it back. So, Dan, I appreciate your time. Thank you for talking about SuperConference. This year, it's in Orlando. In 2017, it's in Orlando, I should say, not 2016. One of your favorite spots. Disney. You're a student at Disney, so
I'll bookend it myself.
All right,
so
perfect.
I'll probably be at Disney one or two of the days.
Absolutely. Once again, this is Nicholas Luisi with GKIC. I want to thank you. If you'd like to learn more about SuperConference or any of our other events, please call us at 1-800-871-0147.